Welcome to this peaceful space where words flow softly, thoughts breathe freely, and you can just be. You're listening to a solo podcast that takes you on a quiet walk through the world of personal discovery, inspiration, and simple joys. And today, we'll explore something close to every heart, though often overlooked in the busy rush of life: hobbies. Yes, those beautiful things we do not because we have to, but because we want to, because they nourish us quietly and deeply. So take a deep breath, whether you're out for a walk, lying in bed, sipping tea, or just looking for a comforting voice in the background. This time is just for you. Let's gently unfold this conversation and talk about the importance, beauty, and peaceful power of hobbies. Have you ever thought about why hobbies matter? Why people often light up when they speak about something they love to do in their free time? It's because hobbies are little windows into our soul. They're not about earning money, not about winning approval. They're simply about joy, pure private joy. When we were children, hobbies came naturally. Drawing on the walls, collecting shiny stones, pretending to be explorers or chefs or astronauts. Back then, we didn't call them hobbies. They were just play, but that play was deeply important. It taught us creativity, patience, focus, imagination. And even as adults, that childlike curiosity remains somewhere inside us, waiting to be expressed again. Let me tell you about one of my first hobbies: sketching. I wasn't particularly good at it. My trees all looked like clouds on sticks, and my houses were crooked and funny. But when I had a pencil in my hand and a blank page in front of me, the world became quiet. It didn't matter if I made a masterpiece. What mattered was that I felt connected to the moment, to myself, and to something larger that I couldn't explain. And that's the thing about hobbies. They don't demand perfection, they just ask us to show up. You see, in a world that's always measuring us, grades, promotions, likes, followers, hobbies are our safe place. A space where you can try, fail, laugh, and learn without anyone keeping score. You can plant a garden and have half your seeds never sprout. Still, the joy of digging into soil, of watching something grow under your care, is real. It's healing. Let's talk about the kinds of hobbies people enjoy. Some people are into movement, like dancing, hiking, swimming, or yoga. These hobbies don't just keep the body active, but also help the mind breathe. Then there are creative hobbies: painting, writing, making music, knitting, pottery. There's something about creating with your hands, about turning a raw idea into something real that feeds the soul. Other people love collecting stamps, postcards, vintage coins, old books. It's not about the object itself, it's about the story behind each one. Every stamp, every coin, every photograph tells a story from another time, another place. Some hobbies are social: joining book clubs, playing in a local music group, volunteering at a community kitchen. These connect you with people who share your rhythm and energy. And some are quiet and solitary, like bird watching, meditating, or reading. They don't require crowds or applause, just a willing heart and a bit of time. Here's something beautiful: hobbies don't care who you are. You can be young or old, rich or poor, shy or outgoing. A hobby doesn't judge your background, your job, or your history. It simply invites you to explore. You can be a doctor who writes poems at night, a bus driver who carves tiny wooden animals, a teacher who learns guitar in the evenings. The labels we wear don't matter here. In the world of hobbies, we are all simply humans seeking joy. Now, you might be wondering, but what if I don't have a hobby? The truth is, we all start without one. Every passionate hobbyist began with a first, hesitant step. You don't have to be good at something to begin. In fact, that's the beauty of hobbies: they give you permission to be a beginner. In a society that often expects us to be experts instantly, hobbies let us learn slowly, quietly, joyfully. Maybe you try baking, and your first cake sinks in the middle. That's okay. Maybe your first crochet project ends up as a tangled mess. That's okay too. Each attempt is an adventure. Each moment spent doing something simply because you enjoy it, that's a victory in itself. Let's pause for a moment and think about the rhythm of modern life. It's fast, noisy, demanding: work emails, social media, traffic, deadlines. We're always plugged in, always racing toward the next thing. But hobbies ask us to slow down, to unplug, to pay attention. They bring us into the present moment. And isn't that where peace lives, right here, right now? Many people say their hobbies saved them. Not in a dramatic way, but in small, gentle ways during hard times. When the world felt overwhelming, their hobbies gave them something steady. A thread of comfort, a ritual, a place to rest. Someone might say, when I was going through loss, I returned to gardening. It reminded me that life keeps growing. Even after grief, another might say, when I was anxious, playing the piano helped me breathe. The music spoke when I couldn't. That's the silent power of hobbies. They become companions, they don't fix everything, but they hold space for us. They remind us that we are more than our problems. You know, sometimes the world tells us that hobbies are a luxury, that if we're not being productive, we're wasting time, but I believe it's the opposite. Hobbies aren't a waste, they're a form of restoration. They fill the parts of us that work and responsibility often drain. You can work a full day and still come home and spend 20 quiet minutes sketching, or strumming a guitar, or building a puzzle. And in those 20 minutes, your spirit begins to exhale. It remembers that there's more to life than emails and errands. Let's talk about the role hobbies play in identity. Often, when people introduce themselves, they say, I'm a doctor, or I'm a student, or I'm an engineer, but hobbies let us say, I'm also a writer, or I'm a baker on the weekends, or I love to paint. It gives depth to who we are. It reminds us that we are not only what we do for a living, we are what brings us to life. Some people fear they're too old to pick up a hobby. They say it's too late, or I should have started earlier. But the truth is, there's no such thing as too late when it comes to joy. A 70-year-old man can learn to play the flute. A 60-year-old woman can fall in love with photography. A 50-year-old can start dancing for the first time and feel more alive than ever. In fact, many people discover their favorite hobbies later in life, once they finally have time to listen to their own curiosity. It's a reminder that wonder has no expiration date. And what about children? Hobbies are essential for them, not because they need to achieve anything with them, but because hobbies teach self-discovery. A child who loves painting learns how to observe color. A child who plays chess learns strategy and patience. A child who builds with blocks is learning design, imagination, and focus. As adults, we can support this by allowing them to explore. Without pressure, not every hobby needs to become a skill. Sometimes, it's just about the joy of doing something simply because it feels good. Now, let's wander a bit into some real-life examples. Quiet stories of people who found unexpected happiness through hobbies. There's this woman named Clara. She was a school teacher for over 30 years. After retiring, she felt a little lost. Her days were suddenly wide open. At first, she filled them with errands and chores. But one day, walking through a craft store, she picked up a kit for watercolor painting. She hadn't painted since she was in high school. That night, she painted a single daisy. It was rough, simple, but she loved the feeling. Within weeks, her small kitchen was filled with tiny paintings, flowers, birds, soft landscapes. She says painting gave her a sense of rhythm and purpose, even in her quietest days. And then there's Jay. He's a software developer, usually glued to his computer. But during a tough year, he realized he needed something off-screen. So he started learning to bake. At first just banana bread, then scones, then loaves of sourdough. He says the smell of fresh bread in the oven became a kind of therapy. It was the first time in years he created something with his hands instead of a keyboard. These stories remind us that hobbies are not about being brilliant. They're about being present, and sometimes they become much more. Some hobbies turn into side businesses. A person who loves making soap ends up selling it at a local market. A hobby photographer gets asked to shoot a wedding. A writer who scribbled poems in secret finds their work published online. But even if hobbies never leave your room, or your journal, or your kitchen, they're still deeply valid. Their value doesn't lie in the result, it lies in the experience. Let's talk about digital hobbies for a moment. In today's world, many hobbies have moved online. People create digital art, write blogs, build games, make YouTube videos, or join virtual book clubs. And while some worry this is less real, the truth is, it's simply a new kind of creativity. A person who spends an hour editing a short film is crafting something meaningful. A teenager recording themselves playing guitar and uploading it is learning confidence and expression. A retiree writing a travel blog is sharing stories that might touch thousands. What matters isn't the platform. What matters is the heart behind it. Still, it's good to balance screen-based hobbies with tactile ones. Something about using our hands, sculpting, knitting, gardening grounds us. It connects us to the physical world. It slows down time. Speaking of time, how do we make time for hobbies in our busy lives? The honest answer, we don't find time. We make it, no one is handing us extra hours. But we can choose to trade a scroll through social media for 20 minutes of guitar. Or set our alarm a little earlier and sketch with our morning coffee. Or use the quiet moments before sleep to write a page in a journal. It doesn't have to be long. Even a few minutes can be enough to recharge us. And here's something lovely, hobbies often overlap. You can combine your love of reading and travel by writing a book blog. You can mix your interest in fitness and social connection by joining a dance class. You can blend cooking and photography and create a recipe Instagram. When hobbies intersect, they become even richer. One of the most beautiful parts of hobbies is how they often act as anchors during emotional storms. When life feels chaotic, unpredictable, or just plain heavy, a hobby can be the quiet, predictable space where you feel grounded again. Imagine someone going through a difficult season, maybe a breakup, job loss, or personal struggle. That person might return to baking, or playing music or sketching. And even for just an hour, things feel okay. The world slows down, the mind breathes. Hobbies remind us that we are more than our problems. Even when we feel like everything else is out of control, we still have the ability to create, to explore, to find joy in small, meaningful acts, a brushstroke, a chess move, a freshly brewed cup of tea after learning how to steep it perfectly. These are not small things, these are lifelines. They also foster resilience. Think about learning a new hobby, it always comes with a learning curve. Whether it's knitting and your loops keep falling apart, or you're learning piano and your fingers can't quite stretch far enough, or you're trying calligraphy and the ink smudges, it's frustrating. But you keep going, and slowly, the frustration turns into progress. That teaches persistence. And this mindset can spill over into other areas of your life. When you believe you can improve at watercolor, or singing, or running, you start to believe you can grow anywhere. And there's something truly magical that happens when hobbies are shared. You see, while hobbies can be deeply personal, they also have the power to connect. People who knit often gather in circles to stitch and chat. Cyclists join weekend rides together. Gamers build friendships online. Book lovers form clubs that meet in cozy cafes or over video calls. When we do what we love in the company of others, we create relationships that are built on shared joy instead of just shared obligation. This is especially healing in a world that often feels isolated. When people bond over something they choose to enjoy, not just over work, or stress or daily duties, those relationships feel lighter, more vibrant. Even romantic relationships often grow deeper when partners share or support each other's hobbies. Maybe one person loves photography and the other joins on weekend walks to scout beautiful scenes. Or one loves cooking and the other happily taste tests every new creation. These shared moments build intimacy that's rooted in happiness. And what about when people lose touch with hobbies? It happens more often than we think. Life gets busy, responsibilities grow, and slowly the guitar gets stored away. The paints dry out, the journals collect dust. But the beautiful thing is, those hobbies wait. They're still there, and the joy can come back, often even stronger the second time around. Sometimes it just takes a little spark to reignite them. A walk past a bookstore that reminds you of your love for novels. A visit to a friend's home where you see their knitting project and remember you once loved it too. A rainy day that invites you to dig out an old puzzle. There's no shame in stepping away, but there's so much beauty in coming back. And let's talk about variety. One of the myths about hobbies is that you have to pick one and stick with it. But some people are explorers by nature. They try something new every few months. Maybe they learn how to make origami, then shift to salsa dancing, then try writing short stories. That's okay too. Some people are hobby collectors, and that's a gift. Trying new things keeps our brains alive. It stretches our creativity. It keeps us humble, curious, and excited. So, whether you're someone who has one passionate lifelong hobby, or someone who likes to dip your toes into 100 little joys, you're still nourishing your spirit. And while we're talking about the way hobbies evolve, let's look at how they start to shape our identity without us even realizing it. Think about how we describe people. We often say, she's a runner, or he's a photographer, or she's into gardening. These aren't just activities, they become part of who we are. They're expressions of our personality, our choices, our creativity, and our preferences. Over time, hobbies become ways we define ourselves outside of our work or relationships. This is especially powerful in a society where our jobs can often consume how we see ourselves. When someone is asked, "What do you do?" the answer is almost always about their career. But imagine if we started asking, "What do you love to do when you're not working?" That question reveals so much more about someone's soul. For example, someone might work as a teacher by day, but on weekends they're hiking mountains, photographing sunsets, or baking artisan bread. That's the full person, and hobbies give us access to that version of ourselves. They're also a form of rebellion, in the most beautiful way. In a fast-paced, productivity-driven world, hobbies are a declaration that not everything we do needs to have a financial return. You're allowed to write poetry that no one else reads. You're allowed to paint canvases that stay in your closet. You're allowed to dance in your living room just because it makes you feel alive. That's the power of hobbying, it's freedom. And you know what else hobbies heal? There's so much research now on how hobbies reduce stress. Activities like knitting, painting, or playing a musical instrument activate parts of the brain that bring us into a state of flow. That's a state where time melts away, and we're completely immersed in the moment. In that state, our worries fade. Our cortisol drops, our mind breathes. In fact, therapists often encourage hobbies for people recovering from burnout or trauma. Why? Because they give the brain something new to focus on, something that isn't pain or anxiety, something that says, you're still capable of joy. And hobbies don't have to be creative or artistic. Some of the most fulfilling hobbies are surprisingly simple, like bird watching, stargazing, or collecting coins. The point isn't what you do, it's how it makes you feel. Even routine-based hobbies, like keeping a plant alive or organizing your bookshelf by color, bring a quiet sense of control and beauty to life. These hobbies don't ask for performance, they ask for presence. Let's also talk about how hobbies teach self-discipline. Often, when we imagine hobbies, we think of ease, of fun, and they are. But many hobbies also require commitment. A gardener has to tend to plants regularly. A language learner needs to practice often. A musician rehearses the same song dozens of times. Through this, we learn the power of small, repeated efforts. Hobbies show us that mastery takes time, and that time is worth it. And it's worth noting that in every season of life, our hobbies may shift. A child may love drawing. A teenager may fall in love with skateboarding or guitar. An adult might find peace in hiking or candle making. And seniors may take joy in crossword puzzles or genealogy. Our hobbies grow as we do. They reflect the stage of life we're in, and they give each stage its own beauty. So if you're in a season where nothing feels quite right, maybe it's not about changing everything in your life. Maybe it's just about finding a new hobby, something that speaks to who you are now. And remember, there's no such thing as being too old or too late to start something new. The world is full of stories about people who picked up hobbies later in life and found unexpected joy. A man who started learning piano at 70. a woman who began writing poetry after retirement, a couple who started salsa dancing in their 60s. Life didn't end, it expanded. And sometimes, a hobby that starts as a personal passion becomes something much bigger. A side project turns into a community group. A little sketching hobby becomes a small business on Etsy. A simple recipe sharing interest turns into a food blog. A running habit turns into a marathon goal. While the original goal was just enjoyment, sometimes that joy grows into something that touches other people. Hobbies are not just about escape, they're about expression. And in that expression, we connect with others in the most authentic ways. And now let's talk about something that has really changed how we engage with hobbies in recent years: social media. Social media has this interesting dual effect. On one hand, it helps people discover hobbies they never even knew existed. You might be scrolling and suddenly see a video of someone doing pottery, resin art, bullet journaling, or even niche hobbies like urban foraging or lockpicking, and you think, wow, I'd love to try that. It sparks curiosity, it inspires experimentation. But on the other hand, it can sometimes make us feel like we're not doing enough. And as we come to the end of this quiet, thoughtful journey together, I just want to leave you with one last whisper of encouragement. Your time, your energy, and your attention, they're all precious. And when you give them to something that brings you joy, even for a few minutes a day, you are watering the roots of your own well-being. You are reminding yourself that life is not just about tasks and deadlines and duties. It's also about wonder, play, discovery, and presence. So, wherever you are right now, maybe walking, maybe lying down, maybe just sitting quietly with your thoughts, I want to thank you for taking this time with me. Thank you for showing up for yourself. Thank you for listening with openness. And I hope that after this episode, you feel a little more inspired, a little more connected, a little more ready to welcome joy back into your life, not as an obligation, but as a gift. So go find that spark. It's out there waiting for you. Or maybe it's already inside you, just waiting for a gentle breath of attention. Until next time, take care of yourself. Be kind to your mind. And never forget, life is better when we make room for the things that make us feel alive. This has been your Gentle English Solo podcast, and I'll be right here whenever you need a soft voice to walk beside you. See you again soon.